Okay, now we're on standard 4, and standard 4 is only one lesson long. It's a lesson that is kind of out there in outer space, okay? You don't really make sense. It doesn't really I mean, the work is not hard, okay? And it's not particularly confusing. But as far as why we do it, it's a long, long story, okay? A long story. I'll do my best to at least kind of make sense of it, okay? What's the square root of negative 9? If you said 3, that's wrong. 3 times 3 is positive 9. And you're like, well, negative 3. Okay, here, I'll even write it. 3 times 3 is 9. And you're like, negative 3. Well, negative 3 times itself is also 9. I can't get negative 9. Okay, it doesn't work. What you do in upper level math, when you end up with a negative and a square root, you make it positive and you bring a letter called I out. It's called an imaginary number. I know that sounds just ridiculous, okay? I promise I'm not doing any drugs here at this table, okay? Don't see anything anywhere around here, okay? That's what you'll need to do when you end up with a negative under square root. And 9, then, the square root of 9, everybody knows, is 3. And then you put the I next to it. Okay? Got that? Another thing you need to know. The other major rule. When you are multiplying these out, using the 1, 2, because that's what we're going to be doing. And it only works for the letter I, okay? Whenever you get an I to the second, it needs to be replaced with negative 1, okay? Only if the letter's I, though. Don't be replacing X to the second with negative 1. It has to be I, okay? So those two things. Negative in a square root, you make it positive, flip an I out, and then do it like you normally would. You'll just put an I in the answer. And when we're multiplying out, if I get I squared, it equals negative 1. It's a different number system, okay? And it's really out there. If you're more interested, you can come up and ask me. I'll do my best to explain it, okay? But a lot of people are not going to want to sit through a 20-minute explanation on this, okay? I get that. So let's go to the problem. Some of you are like, yeah, tell me what I have to do, okay? Get to the point, Hermson. Okay, here's the first thing you do on this standard. And this standard's only 3 problems long as well. Start doing your distributive rainbows. Okay, so I got 6i times negative 3i and 6i times 7. So that's negative 18. And there's 2 factors of I, so I to the second. And that's going to be 42i. Just an I, though, because only 1 factor. Now, wherever you have I to the second, right here, okay, you need to circle it. It has to be to the second, though. Circle it, cross it out, put negative 1, and you need to find the product of negative 1 and negative 18. And that's 18, okay? All right, now, you're not going to have any powers because all your second power i's are replaced with negative 1. So you're always going to write blank I plus blank. And for I, you had 42 and then 18. That's the answer. That's called a complex number. That's what this standard is called. It's called complex numbers and then I, okay? But I don't want you doing this with x squared. That's not in the standard, but x squared, you need to keep doing it like normal. It's when it's the letter I, okay? I. No other letter of this happens with the negative 1 but I. Okay. Step 1, this is going to be a FOIL. You can write it. You start doing your rainbows. So you take 4 times 6. You take 4 times negative 4i. Get rid of this. You take 2i times 6, and you take 2i times negative 4i. So this equals 24. This would be negative 16 with I. This would be positive 12 with I, because only one factor has I in those two products. This would be negative 8 with I to the second. Find the I to the second, and that goes to a negative 1, and then you need to times those two. Negative 8, negative 1, and that's 8. So there's not going to be a second power. It's going to be blank I plus blank. But you have two i's, negative 16 and 12. Add those. It's negative 4. And then you have two numbers that don't have I, 24 and 8. That's 32. Okay, next problem. First is the FOIL method. And I'll tell you what, even though this isn't FOIL, you can write FOIL. It ain't going to hurt nothing, okay? 3 times 2. 3 times negative 8i. 4i times 2. And 4i times negative 8i. And that's 6. Negative 24i. Don't replace that. Just a regular I doesn't get negative 1. Just S be the second power. 8i, negative 32i squared. Okay, let's replace the I squared with negative 1. And then find that product. You're timesing those two. And that's positive 32. Okay. So I have 6, negative 24i, 8i, and 32. So blank I plus blank. So you got to add negative 24 plus 8, and that's negative 16. 6 and 32 is 38. Okay. And this only is special with I. Okay. All right. Now, the smart thing for you to do would be to go do problem number 2 on the assignment. You only have a 3-problem assignment. Go do problem number 2. Okay. And I'm going to set my thing up here, and I need to find a sheet for this next part. Okay, now the next part of the assignment, you're going to want to find your square root sheet. Okay. Solve. You have x squared. That means you got to find what x equals. And there's 2 answers. However, you have x squared only. And that's why you don't have a lot of room. You don't need a lot of room. You need to get the x squared by itself. So I'm going to put a 1, circle it. Plus 8, plus 8. So 1x to the second power equals negative 28. You don't need to divide by 1, just cross it out. And how do you cancel out a second power? What's the opposite of second power? You should know this. It's square root. So the square root and the second undo each other, and I get x and a positive negative. Now, whenever we end up with a negative square root, you need to make it positive and bring an I outside. Okay? Just like that. All right, now that that has been done, 28. Is 28 a perfect is on this list? No, it's not. And you're not just going to punch it in the calculator and give me a decimal, okay? You need to make your 2 square roots and see what 28 will divide by. It falls in this range. Does it divide by 25? Nope. Does it divide by 16? Nope. Does it divide by 9? Nope. Pretty sure it divides by 4. Yep, 4 and 7. So you put the 4 first, the 7 next. You replace that with its equal, integer that it equals. So you write 2 square root 7. So go over here like you normally would and put 2 square root 7, and then just put the same thing with a negative. Now, I need you to include the letter I somewhere in there. Technically, it's supposed to go right above, right here with the square root, okay? In front of the square root. I don't really care where you put it, but that's technically the way they want it, okay? I don't really care. Just get the I in there. If you had to bring it out, you need to put it in the answer. Next problem, 2 answers. But again, we have x squared only. Put the 1 in front. Oh, we don't really need to add or subtract, and I can get rid of the 1, so I can do my square root right here. Okay, the square root in the second power, undo, gives me x. You need to make that positive and bring your I out, okay? And 13 is not on the list, so I want to see the 2 square roots. 13 falls in this range, but 13 does not divide by 9, and it doesn't divide by 4. So guess what? You leave it as the square root of 13. Just leave it. You can't do that. I'm going to put fail. Okay? So that means just leave it. With this, don't just put 13. You need to have the square root over it. But you did have to use I, so remember to put I. It goes right in front of the square root. Okay? Up here it goes between the 2 and the square root. Okay, I didn't do a very good job of leaving a lot of room. I and I. Okay, next problem. 2 answers. X squared only. That's good news. I don't have to do all that box crap. Circle it. Undo the plus 11. So it'd be negative 8. Get your 1 out. You don't need. And how do you undo a second power? What's the opposite of a second power? And I don't think I did a very good job. I'm going to get off task here a little bit. Just the reason you undo a second with a square root, because what number times itself is 16? Okay. You can find that with the square root. Okay. So x is 4, and it could also be negative 4. Okay. That's why you undo a second power with a square root to solve an equation. Okay? So x equals, could be positive or negative. Negative under the square root means we've got to bring the I out. Okay? And 8. 8's not on the list, so you need to make these. Okay? Alright, so 8. Between these two, it's divisible by 4. Okay? What is 8 divided by 4? It'd be 2. Put your 4 first, your 2 next. Replace that with its equal, which is regular 2. So, you have 2 with a square root of 2. And you did have to use the I, so I need to see the I in these answers. So 2 square root 2, and then 2 square root 2, and get the I right in front of the square root. Okay, right directly in front of it. Okay, next problem, 2 answers. X squared only. Take away your 31, undo that, and that's going to be negative 22. Okay, we've got to undo the multiplying by 2. Opposite of multiply is divide. So x a second equals negative 11. Square root. So those undo each other, giving me x. Okay, and we got a negative underneath there. Extract an I outside. Okay. 11, not on the list, so you need to make the 2 square roots. And 11 falls in this range. Is it divisible by 9? No. And you can't divide by 4 either, so that means we're keeping the 11 in the square root. Don't just put 11, you got to put the square root over it. Square root 11, put the same thing with a negative in front, and you indeed needed to use the I, so you need to put I. Anytime you have a negative under the square root, anytime you're trying to square root a negative number, you need to include the I. Okay, you can probably go do problem number 2 now, okay? And then pause the video, go do number 2. And number 3 is a little bit different ballgame. Okay, hopefully that went okay. Now problem number 3. 2 answers again. These you want to give yourself some room to write them, though. We have x squared, but we also got x, so that means we have to do the factoring. Okay? Check to see that you have your 0. You have it. You have 3 terms. So I need to do, with 3 terms, GCF and the T-chart. Okay, GCF, negative, nope. Got X inside of on every term, nope. And 11886 can be GCF of 1, so ignore that. ABC. To save you some time, I'm just telling you that on this assignment and on this standard, the T is going to fail. There will be no way to find 2 factors of positive 86 that give you that sum of 18. So I'm going to save you some time. Fail. You're going to need that time. So plus minus. And the opposite of B, that'd be positive 18. The square root and parentheses to the second minus. And then the 3 parentheses with 4 in the first one. Okay, so B, negative 18. A is 1 and C is 86. Okay, 2 and 1. Now here's what is dicey here, and you're going to see something weird happen. 18, and you got to know how to deal with it. 2 times 1 is 2. Now, let's say I go to my calculator, and I do my second square root, double the parentheses, just like I normally do. Negative 18, close it, second power, minus 4186. It says domain error, and you're like, did you do something wrong? Nope, I didn't. Nope. The reason it's giving me a domain error is because it's this must be a negative, okay? This expression here must be negative. So if I get domain error when using the quadratic formula, I am simply going to enter this in without the square root. I'm going to make a square root up here. And I'm just going to enter the numbers in without the square root. So I go parentheses, and you don't need to go double. Don't go double parentheses if you can't do the square root. So negative 18 second minus, just don't hit the square root. Everything else you're going to hit the same. Negative 20. That's why you're getting a domain error, because it's trying to take the square root of a negative number. Calculator doesn't pick that up. So what you need to do is make it positive and bring the I out. Now, when using the quadratic formula, I will allow you to make that into a decimal rather than doing the 2 square roots. Okay. So 4.47, but here's the other thing. You need to connect the I after the 4.47, and then guess what? You can't add those. That has an I, that doesn't. So you're like, well, what do I do? You put 18 plus 4.47 I over 2, and 18 minus 4.47 I over 2. That's all you do. You can't simplify it really at all. Now, technically you can divide. Well, no, just don't. I want you to keep it that way in my class. Coach Larson might have you do something different, but and I'm not saying that's the wrong way, but that's the way I'm going to keep it. So, if you get domain error, you punch in the expression without the square root, put it in a square root, and it'll be negative, so you go I. I'm fine with you square rooting that into a decimal, but remember to put the I, and then you can't go any further. Those are 2 complex number answers. Okay, next problem. 2 answers. And unfortunately, we have x squared with x, so we got to make our boxes. But I don't even have the 0, so I need to add that 3. So So 9x squared minus 12x plus 7 equals 0. And it's 3 terms again. But I've already pretty much tipped you off that the t-charts are going to fail, because the whole point of this is to use that quadratic formula where it gives you a domain error. And also, by the way, if you don't like using the calculator to do that, this will work. Okay, that same thing will work. You'll just end up with a negative, and you'll have to bring the I out. And no, on the quadratic formula, I'm not going to make you break it up. Okay, that's only when you're isolating the x. Okay, x squared, when there's no other x. Negative in front, nope. X on everything, nope. And those three have a GCF of 1. Keep using that GCF calculator. Okay, so A times C, so it's going to be 9 times 7, positive 63. So sum of 12, there's no way you can find it. Okay, and by the way, these number 3 on the assignment, same. The number 4 on the assignment, I took off number 1. Okay, opposite of B is 12, plus or minus the square root, parentheses second, minus, and then 3 parentheses in a row. Okay, so B is negative 12. And then 4, A is 9, and C is 7. Okay, so I need to find the product of 2 and 9. So plus minus, you got your 12 in front, and that's 18 on bottom. All right. So, again, try punching that in with the square root, see what it does. Remember, when you're doing the square root, you'll need 2 parentheses. Negative 12 to the second, minus 4, 9, and 7. Domain error, so write the square root down and just punch this in without its square root, because you need to find out, you know it's a negative that's going to be under there, but you don't know what it is. So parentheses negative 12. You notice how now I'm not doing the square root, okay? I'm doing parentheses negative 12 to the second, minus 4, 9, and 7. Negative 108. So you are going to need to extract an I. And now make it positive, and I's out there, so now square root 108. Okay, and you don't need to, I'm not going to require you to make the 2 square roots. This takes long enough without having to do that. Okay, now the other problem, these problems I'm fine with making you do that because they don't take as long. This one right here, yeah. So I find the square root of 108, and that's going to be 10.39. But since you had to use that I, you need to put the I, and then that disallows you to go any further. Okay. One answer is 12 plus 10.39 I over 18. Then the other one is 12. Just put them both down. I don't have enough room, so I'm going to put that one here. That's first answer. Then 12 minus 10.39 I over 18. And actually, I won't have a problem if you just circle this. Okay. I'm fine with that too, because that's 2 answers, and I just showed you how it's 2 answers. Okay, complex answers, but okay. Now you can go do number 4. You need to get a 0 on number 4. You got to add 25, and that would be at the end.